Welcome to IACT. Thank you for tuning in. And before I forget, because I always do, if you like what you see and you want to follow us, please subscribe and hit like. We really appreciate it. It lets us know where we're going. And don't forget to comment. Today we're going to follow up with what is Sinners 2. We had a Sinners 1 symposium, and this is some of the overview of what that symposium was about. Which brings me to talk about something that we don't talk about much, Our families today are so divided. One part doesn't know the other part. Cousins are marrying cousins. And then what does that bring us to? Well, it brings us to the fact that is a result of inbred families. That is the result of many physical disorders. And whether we admit it or not, it was a time like when I got married, you had to take a blood test. Today, people don't take blood tests. And I didn't understand that, but because of the profession that I'm in, I understand in terms of ancestral healing. If you remember or recall, if you saw the movie Sinners, or if you haven't, I would recommend you do. They talked about how his father was a very unkind person, to say it lightly. The twins, played by Michael B. Jordan, which he did an excellent job in portraying both of those characters. And in the beginning of that film, there was a snake, and he threw a knife to the other twin, and they cut the head of the snake off. Well, the snake represents the sperm. The sperm carries the Y chromosome. The sperm carries the spirit and therefore designates the blood type. Now, what does that have to do with sinners, and what am I saying? I'm saying that ancestral healing is more than just looking at your generations. You have to understand your blood type. Because one of the reasons that relationships or marriages don't last is because those blood types don't match. And let's go back to the Christian book, the Bible, which I always do because I was raised that way. I mean, I was raised a Catholic. Catholics don't read Bibles, but I've also been baptized 7 times. You've heard me say this before. So I've been involved in 7 different religions for years, not at the same time. It says it in there about the bloodline. In the book of, I think, is Leviticus, so when so-and-so begot so-and-so begot so-and-so begot. And so when we look at the blood type and Noah's Ark, the stories that are told, whether they're literal or metaphoric, we don't know. They're still investigating that. But the purpose of this is to talk about, what does the blood type have to do with ancestral healing? When you understand that verse that says, both ye be equally yoked. Now, I know that it's taught equally yoked in terms of religion or whatever you believe. No, it goes down to the blood type. And in the movie Sinners, it showed that the twins carried their father's blood type, and a blood type also comes with genes and characteristics. It's the Y chromosome that determines the sex of the child. And the Y is feminine. And all males have it. There's the X and Y, but it is the sperm that determines the gender of a child. And not going to blood groups because that's a whole nother part of it. So the twins were stern in what they believed, and they had a reputation. Anybody know anything about Chicago, where they went? Chicago's a gangster city. So survival during that period when they made this movie in was a time of high migration and still people working in the cotton fields under what's called indentured servants. Though slavery had technically ended, it just shifted from slavery to indentured servants, and all races were indentured servants. So let's understand that. So in the movie, there's some key points, 5 I'm going to bring up. Number 1 is that part, understanding what the blood type was and why the brothers were like they were. And even though they were twins, twins are not identical. They can be identical, but they're not identical in personality. They still have their own personalities. That's number 1 to look at. The second part, I talk about having a pedigree chart and a family tree. And the difference between those two is the family tree shows the history of the family, which we saw clearly that was spoken throughout the movie with the twins. Your daddy this, your daddy that, your daddy. They never talked about their mother, but they talked about the father. And then they had a cousin. But even that cousin, father said, the devil's going to follow you. His father was a preacher and he had a guitar. And that speaks to purpose. That's the second point I'm going to make. We all are born with a purpose. When you can identify with who you identify with who you are through your family tree and the pedigree chart. Now, I told you what the family tree is, a historic. It's the history of the family. The pedigree chart is science-based. It's genetic. It deals with those physical ailments and diseases. And diseases, again, DIS-EASE, is the diseases of the soul. And this is what Sammy, who was the cousin, father was saying to him when he said, if he didn't put that guitar down, the devil was going to follow him. Okay, that was the second point, is paying attention. Somewhere in his soul, he knew that wasn't the answer, right? And he went on his way to meet with what? He met with a lot of trauma and drama. And then comes the vampires. We all know what vampires are, folk or lore, myth or legend. I remember Bela Lugosi growing up. That's my age group, so, and those were silent films. So, and then the werewolf story. So what is a vampire? I had the opportunity, even though I didn't know it maybe 10, 15 years ago, in London, where I met with a group of people who lived underground, and they didn't have white in their eyes, they were red. And I was told that they were bloodsuckers. Well, what is bloodsuckers? Vampires. And I didn't believe it. But then it came to fruition that there is a group of people who consume the blood of humans to live. Now, as far as the science of that, I'm not sure, but you can equate it with cannibalism. So to everything, there's a point. So again, going back to the beginning is understanding who you are, identity that deals with the blood type. And until you can understand that, you have to know your family lineage. You have to know it through the pedigree chart and the history. And then you connect your identity with your purpose. That's the third part. And the fourth part is to recognize, as they did in this movie, it was their journey. The vampire was a symbol of you being distracted from the journey. It takes the blood out of you. What happens when you are stressed? If you have high blood pressure or heart trouble, it can be a problem because it's life in the what? In the blood. Going back to blood type. Then we have what's called mental illness. And many of you have heard me before talk about mental disorders and mental dysfunctions. And yes, mental disorders are a result of environment. But mental dysfunctions are a result of those disorders. So then how you treat each one, and this is the fourth part, is on a mental, physical, and spiritual basis, which I have developed a MPS system. Each one of those areas has a curriculum that you follow. Mentally, well, you got to watch what you eat. You got to watch what you think. You got to watch what you say. You got to be mindful of whose vibration you're in. Because if you're surrounded with vibrations that are not on your level or low level, then the frequency of repeating that is going to suck the life out of you. Thereafter, a form of vampirism. Okay? And then on the physical level, again, if you're not physically fit or on the route, which I'm working on my health continuously because I am gracefully aging, and it's not easy to eat right in the environment we live in, because even what is portrayed to be the right food is not. The lettuce you may eat, they may say is organic or whatever, but like a farmer told me once who I interviewed, well, who determines if the ground is organic? Because in order to say that, you have to treat the soil with something to make it organic, which means it's out of its natural property. What are we eating? Yes, there's microwaves, there's drive-thru. Anytime we microwave, we're putting chemicals in our system. Anytime we eat processed foods, we're doing that. It's easy, it's quick. And because, again, the mental is so distracted, we just want to get something in that stomach, which isn't even going to the stomach. It's feeding your blood cells, it's feeding your fluids, your kidneys. Every organ on the inside is being nourished by what you bring in. Again, going back to the scripture, it's not what defile a man, what comes out of him, but what he comes in him. And then the final part, spirituality, that's a big one. Spirituality is not religion. It can be. But if you go and look at the Reformation, there's a wonderful series on Netflix, or one of them, but you can find it anywhere. Just look at the era of Reformation. They were all men, which means it was a patriarchal system, and heresy. If you don't do as I do or say as I do, we're going to burn your boots, we're going to burn you at the stake, we're going to burn you in oil, we're going to make an example out of these people. We see that today politically, don't we? We had a congresswoman and her husband killed. Was it because of the politics? Let's look at that. Remember the MPS system, mental, physical, and spiritually. What this person allowed inside of their mind or their mental atmosphere allowed them, inspired them, motivated them to think in an unhealthy manner so far as to take a human life. Let's take the senator out of it. What is it that triggers a person outside of defense or defending the family to take a person's life? Those are the things that the movie Sinners brought up. In the end, what did he do? The man said, I got money. When they thought they had won and they took the land, because they knew they had these vampires under their thumb or whatever. The vampirism reflects the system. And the system we know crosses the board all over the world. What is it that makes a person want to be supreme to another? The only supremacy, the only way that comes about is because the creator in you is greater than that of the world. But if those three areas are not balanced, or you're not working towards balance in those areas in your life, then comes the sinner. What is a sin? It is a violation of the natural order of the cosmos and nature. And what are you? You are a product of the cosmos and nature. We are the stardust that comes from the sun and the moon when they have intercourse called eclipse. Intercourse, let's say intercourse is, take inter, I-N-T-E-R, you can put an E there, but I-course. Intercourse is actually the circulation around the sun. The planets are moving in a course. They're traveling a path around the sun. And when one planet comes out of order, as Earth fell from heaven, then you're going to have dimensions that are not conducive to your spiritual elevation or development. And those dimensions, in my perspective, are not areas that we can talk about as a fact. We speculate, and we speculate based on lots of things. And when we get too deep with that speculation, it's labeled as a pseudoscience. Then you have to go into that, and I'm not going to go into that. But just to come down to the conclusion of the evaluation and assessment of what sinners is really telling us, it's really saying, check yourself. That was their story. It was based on a true story. And the most amazing thing for me about it was, many people say it's a portal. I say it's a portal, but it's a portal for your greater good if you can see it for that. If you can identify with who you are. If you are on purpose. It can be the gateway for you to do that. Because greater is the creator in you than the creator that's in the world. And that's how we live life. And my final thing that I'm going to say about the journey is, and I do a chart and different lectures on different things, but once we come down from heaven, meaning air, the four elements guide everything, we come to earth. And when you come, you pass the west and the east, which is water and fire elements. Those same elements that are guides for astronomy and astrology, that govern the weather. You pick up the feminine genes and the masculine gene. Understand, out of 300 million sperm, the egg in the womb only accepts one. And that one, once cultivated correctly, it comes down from heaven and is born and becomes a living soul to travel, first, the birth process. Second, destiny, which is the choices you make during your years. And destination, how you leave this earth. If you don't do the right thing, then as above, so below. Reciprocity, law of relativity, all of those laws apply. All of this, the Hermetic laws apply. It's not going to change. So on that note, because I can go on and on and on, I would invite you to visit our website at www.iactnow0119.com. We are going to have a fabulous conference in New Orleans. And the importance of New Orleans is where this film was shot at, which surprised me, right? Is the same place that my father's people from. The fact that that movie was shot there spoke volumes to me about things, messages from my ancestors, and that's why I do what I do. And I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope to see you at some of our events and to follow our series, which is called the Africa Center Ancestral Healing Series, put out by IACT. Thank you. Have a great day. And remember, only you can save you by what you do. Ashe, Asheo.